Welcome to the Business Finance Bulletin, episode 291. Hi, welcome again to the latest Business Finance Bulletin. With me, Rob Warlow from Business Loan Services, the commercial finance experts. Now, break with tradition because this is a special bulletin focused on one subject, the impact of the coronavirus. So in this bulletin, I'll be looking at measures taken by the government and Bank of England to support businesses, how high street banks are helping businesses cope with poor cash flow, and measures you can take to minimise the negative impact on cash flow. As mentioned at the beginning of the bulletin, this is a special episode looking at the impact of the coronavirus, but more importantly, the positive steps that the government, the Bank of England and the high street banks are taking in order to support your finances. First of all, this week the Bank of England announced a reduction in the base rate, down from 0.75% down to 0.25%. Now this 0.5% fall is done for two reasons. Number one, to make borrowing less costly for you. So if you're on a variable interest rate on your overdraft and your loans, you will see your interest costs go down. Unfortunately, if you're on a fixed rate, that's not going to happen. Second reason for the reduction is to hopefully stimulate demand. There's a hope that businesses will see that it's cheaper to borrow and will be encouraged to go out there and invest via borrowing. Unfortunately, from the business owners that we've been speaking to over the last week, don't think that's going to happen. Confidence has taken a bit of a knock. So I can't see many business owners rushing out for finance unless, of course, they are forced to. The next thing the government has done is introduced a term lending scheme for banks. Now, under this scheme, banks will be able to borrow from the Bank of England an amount equivalent up to a maximum of 5% of their overall loan portfolio. They'll be able to borrow this at a cost of around base rate at 0.25%. But the understanding is that's got to be passed on to UK businesses, therefore saving them further funds. It's estimated that £100 billion will be released from this scheme. Secondly, there's also been a change to a capital buffer. Now, it's a bit complicated, but essentially this ratio has now been brought down to zero, which means that banks can lend more money out, and it's anticipated that this change will release another £190 billion into the system. And lastly, a new scheme has been launched, the Coronavirus Business Interruption Loan Scheme. Now, this is equivalent to the Enterprise Finance Guarantee Scheme. Now, under this scheme, banks can lend out to you up to a maximum £1.2 million, and in return for the bank's lending to you, the government will guarantee up to 80% of that loan. As I said, it's equivalent to the Enterprise Finance Loan Guarantee Scheme. So there we are. You can see some steps that the Bank of England and the government have taken in order to ensure that there's money available for you and your business. Let's move on now to the high street banks. What support are they giving customers who are suffering from poor cash flow? Well, Lloyds Bank, they've said they are setting aside £2 billion worth of funding. Also, they've announced that if you do access any of that funding, there'll be no arrangement fees. NatWest, they've announced that they've put aside £5 billion. If you've got a loan, you'll be able to ask for a loan repayment holiday for 6 months and also access to higher credit limits as well on your overdrafts. Barclays Bank, well, they've announced if you've got a loan greater than £25,000, you'll be able to ask for a 12-month repayment holiday and also as well higher overdraft limits. So it's good to see the banks coming out there with measures of support. However, one area of kind of message of caution here, if you do have a business that was struggling before, don't necessarily expect the bank to really extend you any further credit. They're really only going to be supporting the ones, I think, who have got good credit in the past and are worthy of support and have a temporary problem. So it'll be interesting to see exactly how the banks do offer this support to businesses. Will it be there for everybody? We've taken a look at what support is available from the government, the Bank of England and the high street banks, but what can you do to help yourself? Now, a survey came out from Market Finance which revealed that 69% of business owners have said that they have seen a significant increase in pressure on their cash flow. More worryingly, 36% of them said they may not last until Easter unless they are able to access the right level of finance. So there are things now that you need to be doing to make sure that you can help yourself. So here's some quick tips on managing your cash flow better. First of all, Invoice quickly and on time. Don't delay in issuing your invoices. Every day you delay is money not in your bank account. Next, stick rigidly to your terms. If you offer 30 days credit, make sure it's only 30 days. Chase really hard and frequently to get that money in your bank account. On the flip side of it, max out your credit lines. If your suppliers have given you terms, make sure you use them to the full extent. If you're used to paying well before the due date, just consider it. That is impacting on your cash flow. So max out on those lines. Next up, think carefully about capital expenditure. Do you really need to spend that cash today? Could you potentially delay it a month or two just to make sure that your financial position is fairly strong in terms of available cash? And lastly, forecast ahead, and if you do need finance, make sure that you engage with the bank early. You may see longer decision times coming out over the next couple of weeks, so you really need to plan ahead if you need finance. So there we are, some quick tips on how to better manage your cash flow. Well, that's it for this bulletin. I hope you found it useful. And if you did, please don't forget to give it a like and a share. So that's it for now. In the meantime, have a great, successful and profitable week, and look forward to being with you next time. Bye-bye now.